You're watching KTUU, Channel 2, Anchorage.
I'm Channel 2 News reporter Jason Moore. Famed mountaineer Alex Lowe once said there are two kinds of climbers. Those who climb because their heart sings in the mountains and all of the rest. Tonight, for the next half hour, we're going to take you along for a summer journey through the Alaska mountains and introduce you to a group of athletes whose hearts sing here in the mountains. The words of John Muir. Oh, these vast, calm, measureless mountain days, inciting at once to work and rest. Days in whose light everything seems equally divine. Whatever his fate, long life, short life, stormy or calm, he is rich forever. In Alaska's Chugach Mountains, the dusting of a coming winter lightly flowers the craggy pinnacles. This is where summer is last to arrive and first to leave. But in those few brief months, these mountains host the hardy spirits of adventurers. Pepper Peak, rising over Eklutna Lake, just one of hundreds of summits scattered across the Chugach skyline. Now its top covered with snow, but it was here in early June this journey began. From a trailhead near Eklutna Lake, 80 runners set out, a 4-mile race. Nothing so extreme about that. But this race only goes one direction, up.
I was feeling good, so I just took off running, hoping to gap.
Young Ryan Quinn, a 19-year-old from Palmer, tries to outpace the lead pack as they reach the ridge leading up Pepper Peak. The craggy Twin Peaks rise to the west, Eklutna Lake below, blue skies overhead. Chasing Quinn, notable Nordic skier Rob Whitney.
Old Quinn dog took off, and none of us were prepared, so we spent the rest of the race trying to catch him.
As the mountain's pitch steepens, the race turns into a grueling power climb. Rob Whitney catches and passes Quinn with mountain running veterans Barney Griffith and Brad Precosky tied on Whitney's heels. After a punishing 4 miles and 4,000 feet, the race decided by mere seconds. Rob Whitney claims victory 6 ticks faster than Barney Griffith.
The last section I was going to sprint, but he sprinted and I couldn't sprint, so that was it.
Where's the top?
Not far behind the lead pack, the first female, Teresa Brady.
As you come up over here, you get a nice view of the lake. So it's really, it's beautiful, and it kind of takes your mind off the pain a little bit.
This is the first time anyone has raced up Pepper Peak. 80 runners who decided not to stay in their house this Sunday.
I'm having a great time. It's good to be on the inaugural trip. Man.
Rob Benjamin from Madison, Wisconsin, came to Alaska for a fishing trip. His friend brought him here. They don't have mountains like this in Madison.
It was an experience. It wasn't really running. It was like a full body torture, really, in the last half of it straight uphill.
I trade my soul for Rob Whitney's lungs.
These athletes are mountain runners, people who are not satisfied to test their endurance on flat pavement. Their attitude for altitude takes them up nature's monuments.
It's just so incredible, and you get such different views, and it's neat to climb the mountain, and then you look at it from across the bay or from wherever and go, wow, I was up there, and then you recognize the different peaks, and it's such a different perspective from a top.
Here on the mountain flanks of Turnagain Arm, Forget-Me-Not and Lupin bask in the afternoon sun. In the distance, a boar tide sweeps up the inlet. A magical evening to sit back, relax, and take it all in. Unless you're one of these folks.
Go!
The 12th annual Robert Spur Memorial Mountain Run takes off from the trailhead along the Seward Highway. The summer's second of 6 races in the Alaska Mountain Running Grand Prix. A fast pace up this footpath which slows as racers get on Bird Ridge and start working their way to the top. From the start, 2 Nordic skiers pull away. Frode Lillefell and Toby Schwoerer.
Looking good, Frode.
Behind them, some 250 climbers. one grueling step after another, ascending the 3-mile ridge. Once again, leading the way for the women, Teresa Brady. Although a longtime road runner and mountain biker, she only started racing up mountains last year.
I'd never seen the power hiking, you know, that kind of leaned over thing, and I was like, oh, what's the deal with these guys? It looks like their backs are hurting. So it was kind of a whole new experience.
At the top of Bird Ridge, 3,400 feet above the start line, it is Toby Schwoerer, all alone. His first trip up Bird Ridge and the fastest ever run. Schwoerer shatters the race record by nearly a minute.
What's the record?
I think you just said it.
Up there, when I just went over the flat part, the last flat part, I looked at my watch and it was 34 minutes, and I thought, oh, maybe I can make it to the finish line in 38 minutes too. And I actually didn't know that I broke the record.
Teresa Brady collects her second win in as many races. Further down, a record number of competitors ascend the ridge, all ages and abilities. Take Heinrich Gruber, a man who started running mountains in 1980. He was 50 years old then. Heinrich, you're 70 years old now. You ever think you're too old for this kind of thing?
Oh, no. It's fun as long as you can do it. No. As long as they're healthy and your legs doing it, then you can, it's always fun to do it.
The sweat, the dust, the seemingly endless ascent. And they find it fun. Have to appreciate them for that. Still to come on High Ambitions, the extreme Crow Pass crossing and the downright brutal Matanuska Peak Challenge. But next, Mount Marathon, the hallmark of mountain runs, as a familiar name continues her dominance, and we'll introduce you to a man who has struggled for more than a decade to reach his peak performance.
Everywhere I go, mountains are just about me.
It's the small town that celebrates the 4th of July in a big way. The city streets of Seward, packed with people who travel here to watch Alaska's original mountain race, Mount Marathon, rising 3,000 feet from the shores of Resurrection Bay.
Set, go!
It's the race men and women will stand in line for a chance to run, the race that doesn't end at the top but forces runners to careen down the steep shaft, and the race which for the last 4 years has been dominated by Olympic cross-country skier Nina Kemppel.
I like to go hard on the way up, and I like to just push the pace out as hard as it can go.
Seeking to extend her streak to 5 wins, 6 total, she pushes the pace again. As she reaches the top, her nearest competitor nowhere to be seen.
She's making her way up to the final rock.
Kemppel rounds the rock at the top and begins the descent that makes her ski coaches cringe.
For me, Mount Marathon is a really big deal, and it's probably the biggest summer race that I do, but my ski coaches think it is the worst thing, and they beg and plead that I don't do this race because I think it's absolutely taking too many risks for 2002, which lies right around the corner.
The risk of injury cannot keep her away from this race, notching her fastest time ever.
And here comes the winner of the 2000 Mount Marathon women's race, once again, Nina Kemppel.
For the men's race, Brad Precosky, with the ponytail and bandana, goes for his second win. Precosky started running Mount Marathon in 1989. He became hooked on the sport and set a course for victory. After a 10-year struggle, he got the win last year.
It's hard for me to put it into words. I was too happy to really even express myself, I think. I had planned a lot about how I was going to do it, and I had my own strategy on how I was going to try to go about it, and it really amazed me that it all worked out.
Boy, he's moving really well.
Brad Precosky is not an Olympic Nordic skier. He does not train at the same level over the winter months. He works odd jobs and lives in a small cabin on the Anchorage hillside. He says it's his competitive nature and his love of the mountains that propels his success.
I live up here in the mountains, and everywhere I look, from my outhouse, I see flat top. My front door, I see Bear Ridge and Peak 3, and everywhere I go, mountains are just about me.
Oh, this is hard right here, trying to come off that really steep climb and make your legs move.
Precosky led the race to the top of Mount Marathon, circling the rock, and if Brad Precosky beats his competitors to the top, there's no chance they'll catch him on the way down.
You have to rely on your ability to negotiate the footing quickly as it comes about you, your agility, and I think you have to have a lot of courage to run fast downhill just to let it fly.
Boy, he's screaming.
Precosky defends his title, earning the coveted run behind the police car through the Seward streets with the crowds cheering.
It seems like it takes about an hour to run from the base of the mountain to the finish line, but I think it's like 3 to 4 minutes. And that whole time, the crowd keeps you going.
Very
what a race.
Impressive. Very, very impressive.
Henry David Thoreau wrote, "When sometimes I am reminded that the mechanics and shopkeepers stay in their shops not only all the forenoon, but all the afternoon too, sitting with crossed legs, so many of them as if the legs were made to sit upon and not to stand or walk upon. I think they deserve some credit for not having all committed suicide long ago." Thoreau would appreciate the next challenge facing Alaska mountain runners.
Any other numbers?
At the UAA Sports Center, athletes pick up their bib numbers, sign a liability release saying they know they could die in this race, and then listen to race organizer Jay Caldwell try to scare the heck out of them.
There's no communication. The cell phones don't work. There's nothing. And so if something were to happen to you, you break a leg, you sprain an ankle, you break a rib, you get a pneumothorax, or one of those animals does something, we're not going to know about it. You're not going to be able to tell us that. The people running next to you are not going to be able to tell us that. You are sunk.
The warnings are for the Crow Pass Crossing, a 26-mile race over mountain passes and through frigid rivers, a true wilderness marathon starting at the trailhead just outside of Girdwood.
Okay, we got 2.5 minutes. You got to line up. You got to. There's not enough time. You people, what are you doing?
Mountain running veteran Tom Corbin, among those who turned out on this damp, cool July morning to embrace the challenge.
This is who I am. This is my life. Running in the mountains, I've coached at Service. This will be my 30th season cross-country running. And I grew up in the mountains in Colorado, and this is what I live for. These people who are out here running are my family.
7 a.m., the gun goes off. From this trailhead, runners climb over Crow Pass summit, past Raven Glacier, through Eagle River, and finally to the Eagle River Nature Center. As they climb the rugged pass, another well-known cross-country skier, 22-year-old LARS FLORA, sets the pace, followed by 42-year-old Barney Griffith, doing what he does best, go uphill.
I have a lot of fun with just the younger kids saying, well, did you beat that old guy, you know? You know, the 20-year-olds, I don't consider myself old at 40, but of course the younger kids consider 40 old, so I get a kick out of that. You kind of have to get your fun where you find it, you know.
At nearly 4,000 feet in the Chugach Mountains, spring has just arrived here in late July, but already fresh snow on nearby peaks signals autumn is not far off. A heavy rain falls on the competitors as they struggle upward. 26 miles, and this is what they face in the first 3. A grueling climb over slippery rocks and through cold streams. And they all paid $25 for the opportunity to do it. Race rules say you have to make the summit in 60 minutes, or race officials will remove your bib number, declare you out of the race, and advise you turn around and head for the parking lot. Laura Strand brings up the tail end.
Well, I'm feeling that time crunch. I know I should have reached the creek in 40 minutes. that I'm a minute behind. But if I can pick up a little time, maybe not on this hill, but on the ice field, I might be able to make it.
On the other side of the pass, LARS FLORA, after being stalled for several minutes by a confrontation with a black bear, held the lead. The second half of the race is relatively flat, but after 20 miles, runners maneuver weary legs over rocks and tree roots and through countless puddles on the trail. At the Nature Center, 3 hours and 16 minutes from when runners took off, LARS FLORA captures the win, overcoming bear encounters and fatigue.
Then I got to the river and kind of noticed my legs were kind of gone, and it was a big struggle just to get in. And about 5 miles, 4 to 5 miles from the finish, my legs were toast. It was very hard. It was my first time on the trail.
Not bad for a first-timer. Nora Tobin claims victory for the women, also a first-time Crow Pass competitor. She finishes in 3 hours, 46 minutes.
Oh my gosh, it was wild. It was just like full of mud, and it was crazy. You know, and a lot of times we had a route find because the whole trail was washed out. It was like complete water, and we were like, are we in the river or is this a trail?
You might ask why these folks do this. There's marathons they could run on the road and not risk their life. Tom Corbin put it best.
I look at this race like almost like life, a birth, maturation, and almost death. You run through everything you have, physical and intellectual, and then it becomes emotional, and then through spiritual, it seems like.
And at the finish line, salvation. Well, if you thought the challenges for the mountain runner couldn't get much tougher than the Crow Pass crossing, you'll want to stick around, because when we come back, we'll take you to a place just outside of Palmer where mountain runners are forced to climb to even greater heights. Henry Ford once said, obstacles are those fearful things you see when you take your eyes off the goal. But when you climb mountains, the obstacle is the goal. In this case, Matanuska Peak, rising 6,119 feet over Palmer. And it is indeed fearful.
We can go over the trail.
Lance KOPSACK, whose brother Braun started this race 12 years ago, gives a short pre-race briefing.
We're going to start right up here between the two posts and go down here just past the last car, and you make a left and you just follow the Lazy Mountain Trail up to the top. The
Matanuska Peak Challenge, covering 14 miles. But what scares these runners is another statistic. They'll have to climb a total of 9,000 feet before this race ends. That's 3 times the height of Mount Marathon. From base camp on Mount McKinley, 9,000 feet would take you 3/4 of the way to the summit. Only 40 runners brave enough to take this challenge. They start with a climb up Lazy Mountain, a wet and muddy trail through grass and alders. Barney Griffith and Brad Precosky lead the way. A deliberate pace, knowing the race won't be won on Lazy Mountain. Recent rainfall makes the climb more difficult.
Only in Alaska is this considered fun.
When runners crest Lazy Mountain, they drop into an open valley. This is where they get their first view of Matanuska Peak, its summit in and out of the clouds. At 6,000 feet, you're higher than most small planes fly. As the mountain runners approach, race official Nora Lee Voigt, who started hiking up here at 5 in the morning, awaits their arrival.
You know, once you get up here, it's just so beautiful. Sometimes the sun comes out, sometimes it's snowing on you or raining. But when it is clear, it's just beautiful. And after I get up here and rest a while, it's worth it, you know, to do the climb.
The first runner sighted, Brad Precosky, scurrying over big boulders that cover this peak. By this time, runners have been on the trail almost 2 hours. The summit of Matanuska Peak marks the halfway point.
Way to go. How you feeling, Brad?
A little tired. Pretty tired.
While he stops for a drink, he sees Barney Griffith approaching from below. Precosky's rest at the summit lasts only a few seconds before he begins retracing his steps back toward the finish line.
How you feeling, Barney?
Oh, I think I'd like to sit down, rest. Which I probably will for a second. Just a good excuse to stop.
Any chance Brad's reachable?
It's always possible, but with that type of lead, if he doesn't slow down, I'm not going to catch him.
How about Darren?
Darren's doing really good. I gotta get going.
Griffith takes off as Darren Mattingly makes the summit. Well known for his mountain biking and extreme snowboarding in Alaska, Mattingly now climbing into the top ranks of mountain runners.
Wish it was a little more clear, but it'll work. Broke 2 hours.
Using legs and arms, the rest of the pack claws their way to the top, over the lichen-covered loose boulders in the misty thin air.
Everybody ought to do this. This is it. The bomb.
Teresa Brady led all other women, which amounts to just one, ELLYN Brown, the Anchorage school teacher, now in her third mountain run of the season, and her favorite.
I do less and less road running, and I just prefer to be on non-pavement up in the mountains with under the blue sky and away from all the people.
A quote by Sir Edmund Hillary: "It is not the mountains we conquer, but ourselves." As runners come off Matanuska Peak and contemplate yet another climb up and over Lazy Mountain, they learn a little about themselves.
By the time you get down from that peak, you're a mess. It's tough to get yourself pulled together and be able to still run and go up another mountain and then have to go down again. The whole concept of switching gears that many times in a race is really daunting.
All right, Brad!
Brad Precosky emerges from Lazy Mountain with no competition in sight. A record time, 3 hours, 5 minutes, 22 seconds. He's followed by Lance KOPSACK, who is joined by his children as he races for the finish. This race is, after all, a family affair for this Palmer runner. Started by his brother, a cross at the summit marks the site where his father's ashes are spread.
Oh, it's just the extreme of it, and, you know, it's not really a run. It's more of a vertical climb up and down. It's kind of, I don't know, it's what Alaska's all about.
No prize money, no big cheering crowds, just personal satisfaction. They're able to do what most would never attempt.
That was great.
At the ski resort in Girdwood, there's an easy way to the top of Mount Alyeska, and there's an easy way down. But mountain runners, they prefer the hard way. The sixth and final race of the summer season takes off from behind the Alyeska Prince Hotel.
1, 2, 3!
The Alyeska Mountain Run, a clear day that brings out all of Girdwood's glory. In a few months, these slopes will be covered with snow and skiers. But on this August day, a rocky trail becomes the venue for Nordic skier Frode Lillefeld to once again display his strength and endurance. He maintains a running pace as he ascends the steep slope. At first glance, it may not look like these mountain runners are moving very fast or even working hard. But just listen. Not far from the lead, the familiar face of Nina Kemppel, once again pushing the pace.
The start went real well, and I just got stronger and stronger throughout the race, and it's a real fun race for me because I get to race with the boys, and it's always fun to pass a boy and say, come on, you don't want to get beat by a girl, do you?
At the tram tower up top, just over 20 minutes after they started, Lillefeld appears, still running, setting a record time of 22 minutes, 8 seconds.
It was pretty good. I felt okay the whole way. I tried to run the whole time, and I was able to do that, sort of, kind of running, really short steps.
Round trip to your right, one way to your left.
The Alyeska Mountain Run gives runners a choice. Stop at the top or continue the race all the way down.
How many round trippers are
Right
there?
here.
How many have gone?
You're the first. None.
All right.
Good job.
Barney Griffith, the first runner to make the turn and head for the bottom. But by midway down the mountain, a speedy Darren Marquardt is first to arrive. Young knees, no fear, and his pace only picking up as he races for the finish line.
Barney took off ahead of me. I'm like, Barney is turning the downhill. I'm like,
no way, I've got to do it, because I didn't want to at all because I was hurting. But I did it, and I passed them, and scared and hurt more than I ever had in my life, but it's worth it.
All right, Nina. For the women, Nina Kemppel wins the race to the top and check off another victory for Teresa Brady, the first woman to complete the round trip. Close to 300 runners in all, struggling up and down this mountain.
Trying to outrun time, age.
Slow but steady.
Regardless of pace, each finds it a bit painful, yet satisfying. 6 summits in all in just a few brief months. What sights they have seen. Doing it because here in the mountains they find a peace and clarity of purpose. Among close friends, considered almost family.
And when you're up in the mountains, you just leave all your cares and worries behind, and it's just nice to share that with other people.
And so this summer in the mountains comes to an end. The long shadows and the chill of autumn are now upon us. But for mountain runners, they're already getting out their cold weather running gear and their cross-country skis. As John Muir said, going to the mountains is like going home. And when the thaw comes next spring, they'll be ready to go back home again. Thanks for watching, folks.
Friends that were here by chance. That very thought makes me want to dance. What better stage than a mountain to click her heels? And when you yodel, you'll see that you're never alone, 'cause the mountains echo back all on their own. Call it physics, that's not the way it feels. And after reaching the ridge at the end of the day, overcome by it all, just gotta say, ole. And I'll strum it from a summit, oh yes I will. If I can't find a summit, I'll strum it from a hill, ole.